We're gonna cut down.
We are live. We are live. We are live.
We
We
are
are live.
live. We're live.
We are back. We are back. We did take a week off for the holiday. For those of you who are
Happy
with
New
us,
Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Our new date seems like it's going to be coming out on Fridays. Seems like a better
I like it.
date for the podcast. Get it out. Hey, you get to start the weekend off right. A lot to talk about because we did take that week off, so a lot of topics overlap. There's a lot of signings, a lot of trades. But as always, I'd like to welcome the guys on the podcast. We got Todd, and we got, for the first time, we got the man of mystery, Bob, King Bob himself.
Yeah, he's going to be silent for this unless we unmute him.
Unmute him.
He might have something to say on a few topics, but I should also note that we did record an episode. What was that? 2 weeks ago? Right now, right before the holidays. Episode, what was that? 11. So this is 12.
Yeah.
Talking about some of the key events that happened that week. Had it up on YouTube. Didn't put it out on Spotify. Maybe we will. Maybe we won't. I don't know.
No, it's out.
Oh, it is? Okay. So
scratch that. Scratch Todd's apology. It's out. See, this is what
happens.
I'm
sorry for saying I'm sorry.
No, this is my fault. I'm going to take blame because normally when I post it or publish it, I send a message to Todd. I did not send a message, and that's my fault. But it was posted. It is on Spotify. We had issue with the quality with something in the beginning, but it's out in podcast form. It's also on YouTube. As you know by now, we record these live, so you can watch us. You can watch us record it whenever we record.
We tweeted about it, so come on.
Yeah, you follow us on Facebook and Twitter. You'll know when we record, and then the next day or day after that, you will get the podcast on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. A lot happened. I would say we have a couple things happened today, but let's jump right into probably the biggest story of the week, biggest story of last week at least. New York Mets trade for Francisco Lindor, and as much as a Met fan, we were expecting a big move because that's all we heard was big signings, big trades, Bauer, Springer, Arenado, everything. It was still a great surprise when we got Lindor, got this talent that is unmatched. I mean, his level of talent, I can only think about it as like when the Dodgers got Mookie Betts last year. It's the only thing I can kind of, and that was different because the Dodgers were they were in the World Series for X amount of years, and they added Mookie Betts. But I think this is a huge move for the Mets. One of those deals where the Mets didn't give up a ton. I think it was more because Lindor's on a 1-year contract, has $30 million coming to him this year, and teams are broke. So there wasn't much of a market, as crazy as that sounds. And they know this next year coming up for shortstops is a dearth in free agent. You're going to have probably not Lindor at this point. I would put odds against that he makes it to free agency. You're going to have Carlos Correa, Javi Baez, and Trevor Story. So you want a shortstop, you're going to have a chance in the next offseason.
I feel like the Mets, the value that they gave up was fair for someone who's on an expiring contract. If Lindor had 3-4 years left, this would be a different deal. The fact that they kind of just threw in Carlos Correa, who has had great seasons in the past, just kind of as like a sprinkle in there is pretty wild. He could be a key part of the rotation moving forward. He could be your number 3, number 4 going down the line, which Mets have always, for the past 5-10 years, it's always been pitching for the Mets. Everyone talks about the aces that they've had or people that have not quite met their potential, and to continue to build depth in that spot is something that they're going to need going into the playoffs. So I don't think his value in this deal should be underestimated either. And with Lindor, I would suspect. I think he'll be. I think they'll lock him up. I don't think it'll happen for a while. I think it could even go into like end of the season, kind of where they. I just get the vibe that Stevie's not a guy who's gonna. He wants to evaluate, and if things are going south, I think he's going to want to make moves quickly. And Lindor being on a 1-year deal allows some flexibility for a team that might be willing to take a flyer. I'm not saying that's happening. I don't think that'll happen, but it's one of those moves that gives them a variety of angles here and gives Stevie the control.
Well, from what I've heard, Lindor wants deal done before the season starts. He doesn't want to, or after. He doesn't want to negotiate during the season, which I get from a player's perspective. But it wouldn't really matter if they signed him now because the contract doesn't start until, and it's not like they're going to give him much more than his 30, whatever his window is right now. I mean, if you think he's going to get a 7 to 10 year deal, is probably fair for the kind of guys that are getting those deals. Probably somewhere in that $30 million range, probably a little higher, like 35 maybe. So I feel differently. I think this deal gets done sooner rather than later. I know the Mets also want to get a Michael Conforto extension done. That's pretty important to them. So it's going to be interesting to see if it gets done. I just think there's too much positives in this. You have Steve Cohen's wallet. You have Lindor in a big market. There has been times where Lindor said in the past he doesn't love the idea of free agency. And I think as much as we think like players want to be free agents, if you're in the right situation and you can lock yourself up for close to a decade or a decade in some cases, I just think you do that and you avoid the negative. It's nice to be in free agent. It's nice for these teams to come and want you and to be, flown here and given this nice dinner and given all this. But if you're comfortable and you're in a situation that you can call home, just do it.
I mean, from a flexibility standpoint, for the Mets, this allows them to, I guess, table some decisions if they want. They can see now if, what if they end up signing Trevor Bauer and George Springer? Do they necessarily want to give Lindor the deal at the end of that? I don't know. It's all going to be, I think this was the right move for them. It gives them a lot of flexibility, and having Carrasco in there as a throw-in was a pretty nice addition.
Well, I think also it gives them flexibility in the fact that they don't necessarily need George Springer anymore. As much as it's still a fit, he would fit us. You've got the big bat you needed, you brought in. Now, would it be extremely helpful to also add George Springer? Of course. Would it make you probably the second best team in the National League, up there with the Braves going back and forth? I think so.
And the Dodgers.
I said I meant if I didn't say it correctly there, I meant to say probably the second, meaning competing with the Braves for second is what I meant to say.
Got it. Okay.
So you have that situation, and if you do bring in Bauer, that changes everything because then you start going DeGrom, Bauer, Stroman, Carrasco, Syndergaard when he gets healthy is the fifth, and we also have David Peterson, who was rock solid last year. So my opinion at this point is I don't see Bauer in almost any capacity unless the contract's constructed weird. I just don't think that's as big of a need. I still do see Springer. I think we're really one of his only markets. As much as Toronto's exists, if he has the ability to come to the Mets, who have now added Lindor with the team they already have, I think he'll make that work personally.
Don't underestimate the Connecticut Cowboy.
I really hate when you do that accent. That episode was painful.
If he comes to the Mets, we need to make a T-shirt of that.
Yeah, mark my words. If he comes to the Mets, we will make a T-shirt of the Connecticut Cowboy because he can't be sued because I don't think he calls himself that. I think you made that up.
He will be riding riding away from Houston. I don't know if we can get this design somehow, but if anyone's out there that can design this, we
Him
need
riding away
riding
from
away
like,
from Houston,
and we'll
but
do like
like
the
some big New York Met lights in the that he's riding off towards.
and then we'll put Steve Cohen on it too.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we're gonna do that, guys. We're gonna make T-shirts if George Springer comes, and like I said, there is no issue because he doesn't actually call himself the Connecticut Cowboy because he doesn't have an accent at all. So whatever, that's fine. Yeah, but when it comes down to Lindor, a lot of National League teams improved. The Nationals, I mean, Nationals improved in a much smaller way, but after adding Josh Bell, they added Kyle Schwarber last week, and it creates two big bats to surround Juan Soto. I mean, Bell and Schwarber have upside; they can hit the crap out of the ball, and it gives you big bats to surround Soto. I don't know; it doesn't change who they are as a team, doesn't make them a top team, but it gives them some.
They're going to have a Royals like decline.
I mean, their pitching is still rock solid unless they age fast. And top of Lindor, we had a bunch of free agent signings last week, starting with Liam Hendriks. Liam Hendriks signs a 4-year deal with the Chicago White Sox. I believe the crux of the deal is 3 years, 30-something, and then the fourth year, I looked into it more. The fourth year is a straight option, but it's the weirdest option you'll ever see. So basically, if he opts in, it's a 1-year extra $15 million. If the team opts in, excuse me, it's a team option. If the team decides to decline the option, the money still goes to him, but it's extended over a period of 10 years. So basically, they'd be opting out, but still paying it, but it's broken out over time instead of that year, which I get for a guy. Maybe if you're nervous about his durability, you could stretch that money out. It's not the worst construction of a contract.
I'd rather just pay him.
Well, my guess, they're saving themselves for the chance that teams go broke in the near future, and then you could stretch it out. But my guess is there's no reason they wouldn't just pay it out and keep him for whatever reason. You know, I don't see what would happen, but I think that's a good fit for him. They desperately needed a closer, and we know you love Tony La Russa, but I think they're going to be
They're one of the few teams going for it right now in the American League. It seems like
there's not a lot of them.
I can't really name more than I don't know who is going for it in the American League right now.
The Astros.
They're not going for it.
The Yankees.
Are the Yankees going for it? I don't know. The Rays aren't.
But I feel like if you're the Yankees, if you're anyone in the American League, if you're a team like the Yankees that got to the playoffs, just by standing pat and not trading away some of your guys, you're almost going for it. I mean, but I guess by letting DJ, if we'll get to that in a little bit, but maybe that, I don't know. But also, we're saying this about teams that aren't going for it because they're not signing guys, but like nobody's signed yet. So it's not like teams are really missing out because free agency wise, I understand trade market has got a little hot, little bit because of Lindor, but free agency wise, I mean, who's signed besides Hendricks and James McCann?
There's not going to be a lot of money around for pitchers. I feel like we're going to see that in the next month or so, where it's just going to, I think we're going to see that it's going to dry up. If I had to predict right now, we're not going to see another major deal of a trade, except for Archie. I think we get to that, but I don't know if Archie Bradley signed with the Phillies today. That's I don't know the details of that deal. He's a decent reliever. Yeah, we'll get to that. But otherwise, I don't think there's a major deal on the horizon for the next month or so. I think everything with Trevor Bauer is kind of in this like charade point where like Rachel Luga says something, Trevor Bauer says something, someone posts a video, some reporter posts a tweet that they say sources say that something may be happening, but they're not sure, it's unconfirmed, there's a mystery team, all that nonsense. And we're just going to be in that cycle for the next month or so.
I think we're close to some things. I do, because I think we're getting too close to the regular season and teams are going to start panicking. Not panicking
There's
in the
no
sense of
money though.
but the teams that do have. I mean, if you look at the top guys like your Bowers and your George Springers, and even your Real Mutos, who we pretended. I don't even know.
Ozuna hasn't signed.
Ozuna, but they're really going to be bid. They're going to be bid on by the major teams. I mean, you think you're going to have in the big negotiations, you're going to have the Mets in them. You're going to have the Angels in them because they are the Angels. Red Sox, I've heard, have been sniffing around. But there's not going to be a lot of teams.
As Jared Carabas likes to say,
They're
right
always
now
interested.
the Red Sox are always interested. They're the interest kings right now.
But I just think if you're a team that has money to spend and you're willing to spend it, you're gonna leave this free agency with somebody. Is kind of my point. I don't see how
Question
you
is who has the money. I don't know.
like. I could still see the Padres, who I think are done with pitching, going all for it and bringing in like an Ozuna or a Real Muto, and spending money in that regard. I would like to lean and say that they're done with the big moves personally, but you never know. If you have a chance and you see how weak the rest of the MLB is at making moves and they're kind of broken, they're kind of hanging in one place, this may be your chance, especially if you're in the American League, just to jump through that hoop.
Yeah, even if you want to do 1 year rentals this year and kind of go for it. If your team's in the weeds, like I don't know, the Royals, who were signing guys to like 2-year deals, kind of like what the Knicks did for a couple of years, where they would sign guys to these 1-year deals or 1+1 deals. We might see a lot of that in the next couple weeks, month or so. So,
well,
a lot of that will dictate the direction of baseball this year.
Speaking of 1-year deals and 1-year contracts with veterans and stuff, we're going to start with the one we just mentioned before, and it was the Phillies and Archie Bradley. This is recorded on Thursday. The contract was just announced. It's a 1-year, $8 million deal for Archie Bradley to the Phillies. And I love Archie Bradley. I think he's a hell of a pitcher.
He might have to shave his beard.
Don't want to have to do that. I just don't think he fits as a closer. I think he's a very good arm that would have fit nicely in a bullpen that already has that big guy, that closer, the guy for the ninth inning, and let him kind of be that seventh, eighth situational guy and just be dominant with doing that. I don't know if he has the stuff to close out games. He did early in his career, and then it started fading away with Arizona. Went to Cincinnati last year where he was kind of like that seventh inning guy, and he was excelling at that. My guess is he's going to close for the Phillies as their bullpen is god awful. But I guess we will see what other moves come in the horizon. But at the end of the day, it's a good move for the Phillies to add a good arm.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen him go somewhere where he could have some competition for the closer role. Like the Yankees will never do it, but I'd like them to have a competition for the closing role. There are other teams out there that you can think of. The Mets with Edwin Diaz could have been a fit. There, even Dodgers put him in an 8th, 9th inning situation because their closer situation right now with Kenley Jansen's a little on the fuzzy side. So I don't know. I guess for a 1-year deal, he probably assessed the market. $8 million is pretty fair value, I would say, for someone who doesn't have a ton of closer experience to go be that guy. And there's no competition there. It's not like you said, that bullpen is god awful. I don't know off the top of my head where their bullpen ranked statistically in terms of what their bullpen ERA was, but I assume it was pretty awful.
Yeah, I think they were not too far off the Red Sox, and in that regard, they were both. If I had to guess, they were both probably bottom 3, bottom 4. That's just a blatant guess on my part.
Yeah, with the Phillies in an interesting money situation, it's these 1-year deals make sense.
I don't know what they're gonna do. It feels like I've been in a situation before when like you're playing Madden or something, and you have this team, and you have like 3 guys signed, and they take off like 80% of your, of your payroll salary cap, and you have to fill the rest of the team with like $1 million. I feel like that's what they're gonna have to do in Philadelphia to build around Bryce Harper.
Yeah, their ERA for the year across all pitching was 5.14.
And even at that, at 5.14, that's probably heavily influenced by guys in their starting rotation that pitched well.
Right.
Which is crazy to think.
ERA might be near 7.
Yeah. And then another 1-year deal today, much, much smaller, but I don't want to not address it. The Mets signed Jose Martinez, the first base outfitter. Just a guy, I mean, to me, it sounds like it's insurance if they trade JD Davis. He's a guy that plays similar ways, can play first, play third, play outfield. It's a no-risk move for the Mets. If he makes the Major League roster, it's $1 million. If he goes to AAA, which I would suspect if JD Davis is there, he would be in, he only gets, I think, $500K. So it's
only
500K. Well, we're not in the Wilpon world anymore. In the Wilpon world, if you made $500K, you were going to be on the 40-man. You were going to be starting in left field. But in the Cullen world, we could put you in single A, and you could just sell popcorn for a little bit. You're cool.
I'll go to single A and make $500K. That sounds good.
Yeah. And staying on the theme of veterans and where they might end up and maybe 1-year deals, we go to Corey Kluber. Corey Kluber had a workout yesterday where multitude of teams came to watch him.
I saw 20 teams came.
Yeah. And the teams that were notable for our sake, Mets, Yankees, Red Sox, were all there in attendance. That seemed to be the census of his top teams at this point. But of course, if 20 teams were there, someone could come out of nowhere. I mean, we don't know all the teams, so we can't sit there and say that. But I think Mets make a little less sense to me. I would think the Yankees and Red Sox make the most sense. Yankees making sense because his pitching coach in Cleveland, Matt Blake, I believe, is now with the Yankees. Could be wrong on that. So there is a theme there. And the Red Sox just need pitching, so that's why it makes sense there.
Yeah, Red Sox obviously need pitching. Their ERA last year total, obviously including bullpen, was 5.58, which is third worst. Only worst teams were Tigers and Rockies. But Yankees could use a little bit. Not a little bit, quite a cracking open a cold one with the boys. But Yankees, I think I saw something in the Twitter world that Kluber's ERA, because when Yankees fans think of Corey Kluber, we think of, what was it, like Game 3, Game 4 of the ALDS in 2017, where he was supposed to shut us down. We were down 2-0, and he was coming in to lock the door, and Didi just ate him up that game, as he did that entire series. But I believe Kluber's ERA at Yankee Stadium for his career is like 2.1. I saw something like that. I can't verify that stat. I just saw that in the Twitter world, someone commenting on that in some thread. So obviously you're pitching most of your games, not most, but half of your games, depending on how the starts line up. It could be most of your games, but at least half of your games at Yankee Stadium. So, and the Yankees need pitching depth right now, especially if Tanaka goes back to Japan. They need an arm that they can get on a 1-year deal who could provide some stability in terms of not only being an innings eater, he's going to pitch 5-6 innings, but someone who's been there, done that. The Cy Young winner, if you can get on a 1-year deal, no one's going to be like, what the hell are you doing?
I actually think Corey Kluber would be almost the perfect fit for the Yankees. I think a low-risk guy they can get on the relatively cheap. I mean, he's still a veteran arm that is probably, even on a 1-year deal, is still going to get around $10 million. But on a 1-year deal, which is a lot less risk than a multi-year deal, which I think Yankees would be all game for. and they need a guy like that to take a risk on because as we sit today, their number 2 starter would be Jordan Montgomery. So, and I mean, that's obviously keeping Severino out, not knowing where he's currently at. That's an obvious feeling there. And of course, they have young guys behind them that are going to make a run at some rotation spots, and Davey and Clark Schmidt.
Just popped in my head. I remembered.
Okay.
Was it last week? They signed, not a big signing, but Julius Chassin to a minor league deal. Who was, I think, in 2019, he was the opening day starter for the Brewers. He's
not bad.
32, 33 years old, so he's a veteran, but he still has some legs under him. So,
and he's going to be a good guy to have around because we don't know. Their plan is to play 162 games this year. That's what came out the other day.
That's what Manfred said.
Yeah, but you're still most likely going to have expanded rosters because of COVID, I would assume, at some capacity. Whether it's just having a taxi squad or actually having expanded rosters, we'll see. But a guy like him, a veteran arm on a minor league deal, you can move up and down, isn't the worst thing to have.
No, definitely not. I think it was a minor league deal. It might have been, I forget if it was $500K or $1 million. It was something around that. But
it's probably, I mean, most likely a minor league deal. It's probably heavily based off if he makes it to the major league and if he wins one game at the major league level, stuff like that. I mean, it's NFL, but there was a guy this year that had an incentive. All he had to do was get into a game. I think it was Andy Dalton had to win a game, and he did. Stuff like that. They put incentives on these deals that seem far-fetched, but they're not at the same time. That happens all across sports. Staying on the topic of the New York Yankees, Todd's favorite, and this is time for
This
Didi
is breaking
Gregorius.
news today, guys.
I mean, it's really not breaking news.
It is breaking news.
It is breaking news, and I mean, we need to be transparent on this podcast because sometimes in life there's some really bad takes that come out, and we need to address some bad takes that happen. And Todd said, if the Yanks' plan is to replace DJ with Didi, I'd be okay. And I want him to elaborate on exactly why he thinks replacing an MVP runner-up or MVP top 3 vote getter, for Didi Gregorius is okay.
I'm not walking back on that statement. I stand by that statement. When I said I'd be okay, would I like them to re-sign DJ LeMahieu? Yes, of course. I think if you polled 95% of Yankees fans, they would say they would like the Yankees to re-sign DJ LeMahieu. But if it comes at the cost of 5 years, 106 years, 120, 5 years, 100, and the Yankees don't want to do that, I would still be annoyed. But if the backup plan is Didi Gregorius, the heart and soul of the 2014 to 2018 Yankees, by all means, please do so. I think Didi, when you think about, could you get Didi on a low cost deal, much lower than what you could get for DJ LeMahieu? Yes. Who's likely to have a better year next year? DJ LeMahieu, yes. Is it possible that Didi puts up similar numbers to DJ LeMahieu next year? It's possible. And if you can get him on the cheap, sure. Then it allows you to move Kluber to second base. Didi fits in seamlessly. I mean, the Yankees, I think if you talk to Brian Cashman and the Yankees brass, was it 2 years ago? I mean, the last time fans were allowed at an opening day, because 2020, there were obviously no fans at opening day. 2019 opening day lineup, I was at opening day that year, included, no, Didi was not in that lineup, but was Didi hurt? Was he not on the team? I don't know why I'm blanking on that. Troy Tulowitzki was the starting shortstop that day with Glaber at second, I believe. Greg Bird playing first base. and Luke Voigt DHing, or it might have been Luke Voigt at first, Greg Bird DHing. I forget. So if you talk, where I'm going with that is DJ was on the team then. He was sitting on the bench for opening day over Troy Tulowitzki, who basically was on his last legs, literally. So if you talk to the Yankees brass 2 years ago, their plan wasn't to, in their 5-10 year plan, it was never to sign, it wasn't on their whiteboard, sign DJ LeMahieu to a 5-year, $100 million contract. I'm not saying they're not willing to do that. They might not be willing to do that, but they also might be willing to do that. I think part of them kind of probably thinks in that way, where they think in these 5-10 year windows, where if they ask themselves at the start of whenever they plan on a 5-10 year window, if the plan was to sign DJ LeMahieu to this 5-year deal, the answer is probably no. Does that make sense?
Okay, I'm gonna address different parts of that. First address that I want to say is, yes, I agree. If you're saying that if you lose out on DJ, signing a guy like Didi to replace that position for a 1-year deal, yes, I think there is parts of that does make sense. But to say you'll be okay, I think is crazy. Because I think you're losing an insane amount of production. I mean, saying that he could possibly, replicate the numbers that DJ did, I think is crazy. DJ batted what? What did he do last year? 340?
Something like that.
Didi's never hit over 287.
Yeah,
so
but you have
that's not. This is not me coming at anyone and saying Didi can't be a player that gives the Yankees any sort of production. I think he can. I think he's shown it before. I think he's good in that stadium. And I think if you don't sign DJ, yes, he's a probable stopgap and it'll work. But that's also to say, sorry.
I just picture whatever day fans are let back in the stadium, Didi gets up to bat, standing ovation. Didi slams one into the right field stands, does a bat flip, fist bump, and then a curtain call. And all is right with the world.
You're the kind of fan that loves players so much that I feel that if the Yankees came out today and said, we are signing a Yankee great, Alfonso Soriano, to a 1-year deal, and at 52 he's going to come play second base, you would be able to defend that Alfonso Soriano is going to hit 28 home runs, bat 310, and lead you to a World Series.
Alfonso's yoked.
I mean, he's like 60.
He's not 60.
Okay, I'm gonna fact check while we're sitting here, but I feel like he's got to be in his 50s. 45. Okay.
The 5 was coming out. I was gonna say 45.
But that just proves my point. That you were, instead of being like, no, obviously Soriano, okay. No, you went with the thing of he's yoked. He's got a shot. That is the Todd I know. That right there is the Todd I know. And it's almost a Todd that I've grown to love because you just love a player so much that you're just there. You're with that guy no matter what happens, and he can come back 30 years later.
Alfonso Soriano.
You're back on Sam Darnold?
I mean, I'll always have a spot in my heart for Sam Darnold.
That's a whole different podcast.
That's a different podcast.
But yeah, that's what I've grown to love and appreciate from this On the Bump podcast is Todd's wild tendencies. Staying with wild tendencies and wild people, Mr. Steve Cohen.
Here we go.
A lot talking about this week. Todd's going to have a story that has no bearing on facts about a stadium, just a story about one instance ever. But we'll get to that.
Several instances.
Several instances. There was a tweet yesterday that Steve Cohen basically asked fans what they would want to do to upgrade the stadium. And the biggest theme that I took out of it, the biggest thing that actually seems like could happen, is people wanted the orange and blue seats back from Shea Stadium throughout the stands, which was a cool little touch and stuff like that. But other than that, it was very minute things. But Todd doesn't think they're minute things. Todd thinks there's some big things they can do. So, Todd, why don't you get into story time?
Sure. So, as you guys know, I'm a Yankees fan. So, my views, I don't hate the Mets. I hate people who say Citi Field's a good stadium. I hate people who then go and bash Yankee Stadium. Yankee Stadium, while the new Yankee Stadium is not as good as the old Yankee Stadium, it is built in a way that is designed to watch baseball.
But what happens?
You get a hot dog, you go watch baseball.
I'm going to jump in.
Concourses, you can see everything.
I'm going to jump in a few times, and I promise the story will finish at some point. When I feel like I need to jump in, I will jump in. Part of going to the baseball game and the experience, majority of the fans that go, they don't just go to watch baseball.
That's why you should be at a baseball game, though.
But 100%.
If you want to go on a field trip, go to Disney World.
What happens if you get in a rain delay? What do you do at Yankee Stadium?
That's a different story. What do you do at Yankee Stadium? You go to, I don't know, you go to Monument Park. You go to one of the great team stores. You go to NYY Steak.
How are you going to go to Monument Park when it's raining? Isn't it exposed? Well, covered by what? The mesh?
Not all of it. It's not Disney World.
All right, there's a rain delay at Citi Field. You can go to a bar and a restaurant, and you can walk around.
There are bars and restaurants in Yankee Stadium?
At Yankee Stadium, you can go look at plaques for a little bit. Have fun.
There's auctions.
For what?
For memorabilia.
Keep going with your story.
But where was I? So, yeah, there are things about Citi Field. I'm trying to think of a couple memories of Citi Field. There was the one game, actually, I believe Nick was at it. Bob was at it. It was with our college buddies. 2015.
St. Louis Cardinals extra innings.
Yep, extra innings. Harvey Day.
Mm-hmm.
We had got moved to better seats only because one of our friends' dads knew somebody. At Yankee Stadium, you pay for the seats you get. There are no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no opportunities to move because you are at Yankee Stadium. When I sat in those seats,
that's a negative? That we were able to move into better seats at Citi Field? I think that's listen. I'm going to try
to be tighter security.
Citi Field. That is.
We need tighter security at Citi Field. I sat great seat, but was obstructed by what amounted to a sort of not a chain link fence, but like those bar poles? Those fences with those metal bars. It wasn't clear. It wasn't even something you could lean your feet against. There was no added value to that other than when the sight lines made you look straight down at the plate because you were right behind home plate. I think we were 2 or 3 tiers up. You were looking through that. So eliminate any instances of that in the stadium. Next instance, I was at a game with work, got some corporate tickets. I believe I was sitting 10, 15 rows back. I don't think it was middle of the summer. I want to say it was like May or maybe early June. We were cooking. Get some shade rearrangements.
Hold on. I knew that was probably
with the sunlight.
That is the biggest first world problem I've ever heard in my entire life.
Poor Todd
gets work seats. He gets corporate seats for free, while families can't even go to the game because it's too expensive anymore. But poor Todd has to bathe in the sun for a few hours, get a water bottle, bring a towel, and shut up. Keep going.
Speaking of bringing a water bottle, since you want to go that route, I was going to go with a different story, but I'll come back to that story later because it's actually my one. It's a slightly positive story, but still not fully 100% positive. Probably the most negative experience I've had at Citi Field was at a Yankees game. And the Mets weren't playing. It wasn't a Subway Series game. Yankees Rays, was it, I forget what year that was. I want to say 2018, 2017. The year that there was a hurricane in Tampa, and they had to relocate some games because Tampa was flooded. The arena was, or the stadium was not able to be used. So they played some Tampa home games at Yankee Stadium or at Citi Field.
Yeah.
Seats were very cheap. It was like a Tuesday night or something. Went after work to a game. I'm hungry. It's after work. I'm there at the game in what I recall to be work clothes. So I figure, I'll go down to the food area, whatever. I probably waited 3 to 4 innings for food. Half of the time I was at the game, I was either online for a bathroom, online for food, and there were only 12,000 people there. It wasn't a full stadium.
So do you think it's possible that because the game was unannounced until last second or a week leading up, whatever it was, and there was only limited seating, do you think it's possible that they also had
Everything concession-wise was open.
On every level?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
It was open. And I still waited. I think I went to the barbecue place behind center field.
Okay, well, you chose to go. That's like, listen, I get the reasoning, but also at the same time, that's like choosing to go to Shake Shack in Citi Field and thinking you're going to go there and get your food and leave. There's some places that just like, is there any place at Yankee Stadium where there's going to be a line getting in?
If you time things correctly at Yankee Stadium, you do not wait in line. You don't laugh. You don't wait in line.
And I think this is the biggest, this is the biggest.
Or you don't get in the stadium at Yankee Stadium because Yankee Stadium is actually in the neighborhood. You go to a bar before the game. Maybe you go to the dugout before the game. Have some cheap Coors Lights. Get your bus. Then you get some Taco Bell right in the bar.
So the biggest positive or
then
negative.
You screw over to gate. What is that gate kind of on the side? Is that gate 2, gate 4? I forget. The gate that's near the bleachers. Usually they have 3 lines. You don't wait a long time, and you get in lickety split, and you're on with your day.
I just feel like saying that one of the positives is that you can get food from outside the stadium is the biggest credit to Citi Field because you actually want to eat in the stadium.
You go before the game. It's an experience.
But the problem
you can go
is
after the game.
This is a positive to Citi Field, negative to Yankee Stadium. The worst part about Yankee Stadium to me is that Yankee fans are there. There's nothing worse. There's nothing worse than Yankee fans. There really isn't. Me and Bob were at a game one time. We almost fought this guy, or I almost fought this guy.
Bob's a Yankee fan, by the way.
Bob's a Yankee fan, but this guy kept standing up in front of us. And I almost had to fight for Bob's whole family's honor. And then it was a disaster because they're Yankee fans and they stink. That's the worst part about Yankee Stadium. And there's nothing to do. There really isn't.
You're watching baseball. It's for baseball purists. I'm not looking for an amusement park. If I could go to the Bronx Zoo. You want to go to a Jets game and throw a football around in the little kick field goal area outside the stadium? Great. Your team's 2-14. Go kick a field goal.
Mm-hmm. Go have fun.
Not what I'm there for. I'm there to win.
Go
I'm there
have
for
fun.
playoffs. I'm there for opening day. I'm there to win. Last story, Citi Field. One more.
No,
Somehow positive.
Real quick, I'll let you finish the story. But the reason, if anyone just heard me yell boo for no reason, it was not at Yankees. The Devils are playing right now. They just started their game for their season opener.
Wait. I thought that game started at 7:30.
No, well, they're doing the intros. No, 7 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
Well, regardless, they're doing the intros. And
well, we better wrap this up then.
But because the Bruins just came out and I just booed out loud, not even remembering where I was, so I apologize for that. But Todd, finish your story.
All right, last story. Then we're going to move on here because Devils game is on and it's a big night for us. I was with work, got corporate seats. This time a suite. Suite was great, right behind home plate. There's this huge like metal divider area between where the suites are and where the field is that makes it seem like you're in some tunnel like 1,000 yards from the actual field. Yankee Stadium, I've also been in suites. You can essentially feel like you're right on top of the action at Yankee Stadium when you're in a suite. I did get a picture with Mr. Matt.
I actually sat at Yankee Stadium last year. It was the Yankees Astros series, the ALCS, the first, or 2 years ago, I should say. The ALCS, the first game in Yankee Stadium, I went. It was Cole versus who pitched for the Yankees? No, I don't think it was Severino. No, who was it? Who was the really? It was Garrett Cole for the Astros.
Tanaka pitched game one?
No,
I don't remember.
I don't think it was Tanaka. It was somebody. This is weird because it was someone that it was a matchup of aces. It felt like, but Severino wasn't healthy. It couldn't have been Severino.
Was it her mom? I don't think so.
No. Why am I? Maybe it was Tanaka. What would that have been? If that was the first game at Yankee Stadium, that would have been game 3? 2-3-2? Yeah. So.
Game 3.
That would have been the first game at home, I think.
Yeah.
I think.
Game.
It was the first game at
3. Home. Yeah, Cole Severino.
Okay, Severino was healthy then. Okay. I remember that game. And I sat in the downstairs, whatever you call those, behind home plate. What are they called? It's called a suite. I went with someone I worked with.
Legends?
Legends, yeah. Legend suite. Which was pretty cool. Not going to lie. But I went with someone I worked with. But, yeah, so there's, I guess that was the one thing I could say about Yankee Stadium. If I have to say something good before we leave, then I'll say that. Yeah, that is another show. Big Toddy G killed it today.
Quick history tidbit. I'll keep it quick.
Oh yeah, history. No. You're right. Okay. History.
Happy, even though they divorced, happy anniversary to Joe DiMaggio and Marilyn Monroe. On this day in 1954, Joe DiMaggio, the king of New York at the time, married one of the hottest celebrities in the entertainment world, Marilyn Monroe, who was as some people would say, a smoke show.
She'd be like a 4 today.
No, she wouldn't. She would be very attractive today. No, she would not.
She looks like a better Dolly Parton.
No, she was no.
She was in 1950s 10, 2024.
No, you're wrong. But regardless, I guess not happy anniversary because they divorced, and also Marilyn's death, if you've heard or if you've read into that, was
I did hear about she died.
Well, yeah, she died like 50 plus years ago. So yeah, you probably heard. But death was pretty tragic, pretty messy. But nonetheless, that was a big event kind of for Yankees legends.
Do we think that Joe DiMaggio had something to do with the death of Marilyn Monroe?
I'm not going to speculate on that.
Wow, that right there. Now, I'm going to be honest.
I know how she died.
Completely joking, but that reaction.
She apparently, I think the story I know is that she committed suicide.
Oh, committed to. Okay, all right. So I understand the reaction now. I think Joe D killed her. I'm not gonna get too deep into it.
These are quite the accusations here.
Rest in peace. It's not an on the bump show unless we accidentally murder somebody or accuse somebody or completely ruin somebody's profession for no reason. So we had to finish with something. This one is just tarnishing the name of Joe DiMaggio.
Well, I'm sure he's annoyed at you.
Isn't he dead?
What?
He's dead too, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, I can't get sued or anything. That's fine. They're both dead.
Well, maybe his grandchildren or whatever. I don't know.
Maybe they know that he did it.
Maybe. I don't know.
Did he have any kids with Marilyn Monroe? No. Couldn't be.
Did what?
He didn't have kids with Marilyn Monroe, right?
Did they have one?
I don't think she
might have.
I think it'd be impossible.
I think they had one. I want to say they did. Because Joe was married before Marilyn Monroe. I know he had a kid with his wife before that.
Did that other wife die too? Mysteriously?
No.
Oh, okay. Oh, this was a good episode.
Great episode.
Just murdered somebody. Well, we didn't murder anybody this time. We just accused somebody of murder who is a national treasure to most.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard things to completely come off the fake accusation of Joe DiMaggio. I did hear things about him being abusive, right?
There are stories out there that I can't speak for his behavior. I do not know. I was not around. I was not a Joe DiMaggio biographer. I can speak to what I know about his career as a Yankee.
Gotcha.
His off the field life is very, I would put him in the same space in terms of outside of the realms of their career, in terms of kind of the mystery behind them, in the same breath as Frank Sinatra, where no one can really say, like, some people will be like, hey, Frank Sinatra was part of the mob. Who knows? Maybe he was.
So like that is history.
That's history.
With Big Toddy G. It was supposed to be a quick little bit, and we went down a rabbit hole again. That is history with Big Toddy G. Thank you guys for joining us. If you haven't, follow us on Spotify. Follow us on YouTube. Down below, just hit subscribe, right? I think it's right here. No, that way. No, that way. Yep, that way. Down bottom right. Like us, subscribe us, give us those views, and we'll keep coming at you with content.
Let's go Devils.
Let's go Devils. Thank you guys for listening. And then let's go Brooklyn Nets. Have a good one.
Let's go Knicks.
I already ended it. Later, man.
Later.